Welcome back to the shelf, everybody. Today I wanted to look at 5 directors that I like. So let's get into it. So, first film of the day is Mean Guns. Mean Guns is a film directed by Albert Pyun, and I'm ashamed to admit that I didn't know who Albert Pyun was until like a year ago. But he's one of those filmmakers I discovered and subsequently bought as many of his movies as I could find. He was a filmmaker who has since passed away, but he was very prolific in the home video market of the late 80s and early 90s. He was an exceptionally talented filmmaker who could make insanely creative films regardless of the resources available or what the budget was. And you could look at any one of his movies, there was something unique. There was a true artistic vision behind all of his choices. And his filmography, you know, some of them are hits and misses, some of them are better than others, certainly. But every one of his films is wholly unique and wildly entertaining. And sometimes it's entertaining in a so bad it's good kind of way, and sometimes it's just really cool. And one of those movies that's in the latter category of really cool is Mean Guns. Mean Guns is a bunch of criminals and gangsters and hitmen who are all summoned together to a meeting in a newly constructed prison in downtown Los Angeles. They've all been brought to this meeting because they've all betrayed the crime syndicate they belong to in some form or fashion. And the prison goes into lockdown, they're all trapped inside, and they're all forced to participate in a battle royale to the death. It's a total B movie. But it wears it on its sleeve. It's completely unapologetic. But I feel like it's certainly a standout title in Albert Pyun's filmography, and probably one of his better films. In principal roles, it stars Christophe Lambert and Ice-T. Christophe Lambert is one of those actors that I will watch anything that he's in. And anytime I'm out hunting for movies, if I see him in a title, I'm buying it. He's so endlessly watchable to me. And I mean, he's the Highlander, for God's sakes. And he's just one of my personal favorite actors. Ice-T, I feel like, is an actor who always gives 100% no matter what the role that he's in. He always just goes for it. He has some really fun moments in this as the overseer of this tournament to the death, where he's just being menacing to everybody else, and it's a role where you can tell he must have just been having a ball on set. So, highly recommend the films of Albert Pyun, and if you need a place to start, if you've never heard with him, I'd say Mean Guns is probably a good starting place. All right. Eastern Promises. Look, there are a lot of great David directors, but among the best of them all, Cronenberg has to be number one, right? I would think so. The first Cronenberg film I think I was exposed to was The Fly, which I was shown by my mom far too young, but my mom was cool and just showed me all the best movies. But I feel like the key to a David Cronenberg film, or to understanding his work, is to understand that there is always a weird, perverted, erotic element to everything inside of his films, be that production design, be that character choices. There's just sex permeating through everything. And it's very clear that as an artist telling stories about the human experience, that is the part of human connection that fascinates him the most as an artist. So creating movies through that lens, you can take a film like Eastern Promises, which in the hands of any other director would just be a straight up Russian gangster movie. But when you put Cronenberg behind the camera, suddenly there are all these interesting subtext regarding the sexual nature of violence, and it creates such a weird atmosphere. It's basically the story of a midwife in London who gets caught up in a conspiracy involving the Russian mob, trying to solve the mystery about a young woman who passed away, whose diary she gets in possession of. She ends up going down this dark rabbit hole and ends up befriending Viggo Mortensen, who's this mysterious outsider in an Academy Award nominated role, actually. I love gangster movies. Certainly for a long time, I just saw this as just a really cool gangster movie. But again, going back to Cronenberg and understanding his work more, watching it now, I just see all these different layers of intrigue and subtext. In the hands of any other director, this would have just been a normal mafia picture, you know, with some shootouts and some tough guys. But in the hands of Cronenberg, they're not just tough guys, they're almost like vampire type characters. It's a great drama, and you will watch this film and you will be doing Russian accents to yourself for months afterwards.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. And then right next to that, The Driver. The Driver is a film written, directed by Walter Hill. Walter Hill is another filmmaker who I really only recently got into. But again, anytime I'm out hunting for movies, if I see a Walter Hill film on the shelf, I'm gonna pick it up because I know that whatever it is, it's gonna be cool. I think if there's one word to describe Walter Hill's filmography, it's that he makes movies that are cool. If you look at a film like The Warriors or 48 Hours or Streets of Fire, which is campy, but they're all cool movies featuring cool characters being cool. I can't describe it better than that. The Driver is a late 70s car chase movie with a pretty thin plot. Ryan O'Neal plays the driver. That's his only name. And he is a getaway driver for bank robbers and small-time criminals pulling heist jobs. And he's being hunted down by Bruce Dern's character, who is the detective. Again, just cool, stylish movies where the characters don't have name. It's just the driver and the detective. And you're watching them play this game of cat and mouse across the city streets as Bruce Dern is trying to catch the driver in the act. He's been hunting him with the cops for a long time. And he thinks he's finally gonna nab him. It's just pure style on the screen. And I feel like it's a film, much like a lot of Walter Hill's work, that has just been profoundly influential, whether consciously or subconsciously, on the works of other filmmakers and everything that has come out since. You certainly don't get Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive without The Driver. You also don't get the video game series Driver without The Driver. There's a scene in this film where the driver is being tested his capabilities in a parking garage that was directly ripped off for the opening tutorial mission in the first Driver game on the original PlayStation. The thing I love about car chase movies from the 1970s and early 80s is they feature those great nighttime driving sequences where you see the green and blue streetlights and cars spinning around corners, and you just get that rush of pure adrenaline, clenching your teeth and white knuckling. And again, it's just pure atmosphere, and it's just cool. It's just a cool movie. So Walter Hill, great director, and maybe the master of cool. Could just be my opinion. If I had to choose a favorite director, if it was like life or death, answer, pick a favorite, I'd have to pick Brian De Palma. Brian De Palma is my favorite director of the OG film school generation that came out of the 1970s auteur era. His film career spans so many great genres. You could argue he became the contemporary Alfred Hitchcock for his time, in a way, the nouveau master of suspense, but you could also argue he was an incredibly successful commercial director. He directed the first Mission Impossible. He directed Scarface, which has become one of the most culturally influential movies of all time. It's undeniable. And I never want to pick a favorite or say that one film is better than the other, but the movie that I think personally is his best work has to be Casualties of War. Casualties of War is a difficult film to watch, but it is, I feel, an important film to watch. It is a Vietnam War film and an anti-war film, as most Vietnam War films are anti-war films. but it is a critical look at the atrocities carried out by soldiers in war. The notion of the casualties of war and the people that are affected by war transcends nationalities and political sides. It is just the idea that war is bad. War destroys not just the lives of soldiers, but the lives of civilians, and oftentimes in incredibly grisly ways. You follow a squad of American soldiers in the war who are sent out on patrol. After they lose one of their friends in battle, they make an impulsive decision to get revenge against the Viet Cong by kidnapping a young girl from a village and take her with them as a hostage to be used as a sex slave. It is an incredibly tragic and heartbreaking subject matter to watch, but Brian De Palma is a filmmaker who is overly capable to take a premise like that and a story that, as hard as it is to endure, needs to be told, and he shoots it and composes it in a way that will make you feel everything you need to feel without being gratuitous and overly salacious. It's an extraordinary piece of filmmaking. It's one that I've only watched twice, but it's undeniably a masterpiece that I think should be seen by more people. Sean Penn plays the leader of the squad, and it plays such a evil, detestable human being, but still manages to humanize him and not make him a complete caricature. The protagonist of the film is played by Michael J. Fox, who is essentially playing kind of the all-American kid who went off to war expecting to do great things and ended up finding himself in an impossible position where he had to take part in a war crime because of the circumstances and toxic masculinity and all that crap. It's a very multi-layered performance, and it's a side of Michael J. Fox that you've probably never seen before if you've only watched him in, say, Back to the Future. And again, Brian De Palma has such an auteur voice. He's one of the greatest living filmmakers there is, period. And so, I know war movies are not for everybody, so certainly you watch at your own discretion, but it is well worth your time. And I do think Casualties of War is a masterpiece and should be appreciated as one. I'm going to cheat on this last one. And the reason is I don't feel like you can talk about one of these films without talking about all of them. So I have a trilogy here from director Richard Linklater, and it's the Before trilogy. So 3 films: Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight. Richard Linklater, I feel like, is one of the few directors, as I understand it, who has maintained being an experimental artist as well as being fully embraced by the Hollywood studio system. In that he can make a film like Waking Life or Boyhood, but could still make a film like School of Rock or the Bad News Bears remake. He can experiment and tell stories from a wholly unique perspective and still be recognized as a Hollywood contemporary. The Before trilogy is a fascinating group of films. They star Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke. The basic premise of the trilogy is that it follows a couple through the years as they fall in love, connect with one another, and grow old and eventually drift apart without spoiling things. The first film was made in 1995, and the second film was made in 2004, and the third film was made in 2013. So every 9 years, Richard Linklater would get together with these 2 actors and write the films together and say, okay, what have these characters been up to over the last decade? And then they'd make the movie. So that's kind of where the experimental side of things come. The films themselves, they're walking and talking pictures. The first one from the 90s, we're talking the era where you could have a movie that was literally just people having a conversation. And that was it. When I went to film school, they said, don't do that. That never works. It never pans out. This is obviously the exception to the rule. In the first film, Celine, Julie Delpy, and Jesse, Ethan Hawke, are two young kids. They meet on a train. Ethan Hawke is an American tourist who's gonna fly back to the States. Celine is going back to France, where she lives. They have a meet cute. They get off the train, end up exploring a European city together, and fall in love by the end of it. And when the sun rises, they have to part ways, and they agree that, you know, they'll find each other again someday. It's a beautifully romantic story. As they kind of fall for each other, you as the audience fall for them. And then the second film, Before Sunset, picks up 9 years later. They've both grown up a bit, and they happen upon each other again in Paris. The unique thing about the second film is that it is a movie that exists fully in real time. Essentially, when they meet, Ethan Hawke's character is like, I have to catch a plane in about an hour and a half. And she's like, okay, well, let's just go for a walk. And yeah, in real time, 90 minutes, they catch up, they reconnect, and they end up falling in love with each other all over again. And then in the third film, Before Midnight, going off of the end of the second film, we find that they ended up staying together and having a family. And it's a beautiful examination of a love that was so passionate and vibrant and exciting, and how over the years of just real life and monotony, that can dull and become mundane. Again, it's hard to talk about one film without discussing the others. And even though each film has its own kind of unique voice and its own unique message, the story of these characters and the journey they go through over 3 films is so beautiful, and I love it so much. I think through the trilogy you feel a connection to these characters much stronger and much more profoundly than you would in just your everyday run-of-the-mill rom-com or romantic drama that you might watch. I should give a shout out. This is the first Criterion of the channel that I've highlighted. This was gifted to me by my friend Dale, so shout out Dale. If you're gonna check out these movies, certainly start from the beginning. You could really watch any of them in any order, but I think to get the full experience, you should go on the journey with the characters as the audience did when the movies were released 9 years apart. Richard Linklater, I feel like, has a handle on the human experience more so than most other filmmakers. It's the thesis statement of every film he's made. There's an authenticity to his films that you don't get from most other filmmakers. He's a true master of telling the human experience. I know I cheated a bit. It's 7 from the shelf. The Before trilogy is well worth your time. I think, next time you watch a movie, if it's just a random pick and you've never heard of the filmmaker before, keep an eye out and watch what they do next, because the unique voice that a director has is always going to influence the script and the story and the look and every aspect of a film. Contrary to what the studio system might believe, you do need a director to tell a story. So that's it for this week. I hope you all watch more movies and take care of yourselves.